Hello, everyone, and welcome to A New Direction. My name's Jay Izso, and oh man, when I tell you we have another great show, it's another great show. The book, the author, both together, the combination is going to rock your world. I mean that. I'm not just saying that. The author's name's Damon Lembi. Great guy. I've researched the dude, and he's not a dude. He's just a cool guy. I just love him. Haven't even really met him face to face. Can't wait to shake his hand. We're at opposite ends of the coasts. You know how it goes, right? But the book, folks, if you're going and you're saying, hey, Coach Jay, what book would you recommend that I read to get my business kind of going and kind of get my mind right? What would you recommend? It would be this one. It's called Learn It All Leader, Mindset, Traits, and Tools. And everybody, I'm a mindset guy. I'm a huge mindset guy. Here's what I love about this book. Well, one of the many reasons I love about this book. In fact, I've dog-eared the heck out of it. One of the things I love about this book, it's two parts. There's being and then doing. Now, why do I like that? Well, because you've listened to this show over the course of the last 8 years, you know that I say something that I think is really important. And it's this: we are not human doings, we are human beings. Okay. And if we don't start with who we are, you can't get to do the right thing later on. This is the way this book is designed. It's going to start with you, okay, first. Who are you? And I don't mean the song from The Who, if you're old enough to remember that. I mean, who are you? What are you about? What are your core values? What's your why? What's your purpose? How is that infecting your business? And yes, I said infect, and it was intentional because it's got to be infectious, okay? It has to be. And then when you got that down, then you got to move into, okay, now how am I going to execute all this? And can I do it the right way, right? Because you can have all the other stuff, but if you're not doing anything, well, then you're not doing anything and nothing's happening. And that's the beauty of Learn It All Leader that I really like by Damon. Fantastic book. If you're just joining us live here on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and wherever else you're at, do yourself a favor and do your friends a favor, please. And will you just invite them in and just tell them you got to watch the show, because this is going to be a great show. I promise you it will be. So without further ado, let me do this. I'm going to introduce you to Damon Lembi. He's a 2-time best-selling author, host of the Learn It All podcast. Yes, I said the Learn It All podcast. He's also CEO of LearnIt, LearnIt, a global leader in corporate training solutions that has upskilled more than 1.8 million professionals for nearly 30 years. How cool is that? Prior to joining LearnIt, Damon had a successful baseball career playing for 3 Hall of Fame coaches and picking up practical lessons about teamwork, motivation, persistence that contribute to his unique perspective on leadership. His actionable insights on motivation, teamwork, lifelong learning have been featured in Fast Company, Forbes, ATD, and Chief Executive. Look, folks, he's all over the place. Personally, he lives in San Francisco Bay Area, loves music, books. He's responsible for, at one time, canceling the Guns N' Roses concert. It's not true, but I love saying that. But above all, you know what? He loves to spend time with his phenomenal wife, who is his cheerleader, his support system, his rock, Cara Mia, 2 kids, Luciana and Walter, and Pablo the Puggle. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show and welcome to the first time to A New Direction, Damon Lembi. Damon, welcome to A New Direction.
Coach Jay, it's an honor to be here. And I was thinking during that introduction, I wish I could take you with me for next time I do a keynote or something. Just like before Guns N' Roses comes out on stage, if I could just have you do my introduction, get everybody so pumped up. But thank you so much for the kind words.
Yeah, welcome to the jungle, brother.
Yeah.
There's my little reference. How's that, man? Okay,
I love it.
That's what I should have started with. Actually, that should be the music I should have started with. This is Welcome to the Jungle. I love the book. I'm not lying. You and I talked before the show about how it has impacted me in things that I've got going on. I want to start right away from the introduction. And you have a little section here at the beginning called Know-It-Alls versus Learn-It-Alls, or at least that's how I wrote it down. And there's a know-it-all leader and there's a learn-it-all leader. And I'm curious, can we be a know-it-all leader and not know it? And then help us understand the difference between a know-it-all leader and a learn-it-all leader.
Yeah. So to answer your first question, absolutely, you could be a know-it-all leader and not know it. I can't tell you how many times I've had friends or just people that I know who read my book and they'll say, or they looked at my book and they said, "Oh, this fits me so perfectly. I'm a learn-it-all." And just kind of knowing them, they're more of a know-it-all. They got all the answers. They got it all figured out. I kind of chuckle, ask them a couple of questions, but it's possible. And I'll explain what a learn it all and know it all is. And I don't think everybody all the time is one or the other. I think it kind of ebbs and flows. You know, some situations you're a know it all, some situations you're a learn it all. Hopefully you lean towards the learn it all side. Um, the difference between a learn it all and a know it all is start with a know it all. We all know those people. They have everything figured out. Their answer is the right answer. It's either their way or the highway. You start giving them advice or feedback, they either get defensive or they just kind of roll their eyes like they're not even paying attention to you, you know? And I think it's a dangerous place to be, especially as a leader, if you think you have everything figured out. On the flip side, you have a learn it all. You have somebody who is open, is like you mentioned earlier, curious, realizes that there's always ways to get better and improve, always looking for ways to get better and improve. And they're just kind of open and they surround themselves with people. They're not, you know, intimidated by having people who are smarter than them or better than them in certain areas. And they tap into them. They leverage their strengths and their knowledge to help make themselves and their teams better.
Do you know when I read Know It All versus Learn It All? First of all, I don't know how acquainted you are with the Gallup Strengths Finder. I don't know.
I mean, I've done it. I know it's some of my, you know, I'm pretty familiar with it.
Okay, well, my number one strength is learner. Okay, that's my number one strength.
That's up there for me.
Yeah, I want to learn everything. But you know what sadly is also true? Somewhere along that continuum, I can be a know-it-all. And I have to have my wife and my friends call me out on it because I sometimes get a little overconfident. And so she has permission, as I gave permission to my friends, and you know, where if they think I'm trying to be right, which I've learned that from parents, call me out on it. I won't get defensive, but I will get real silent and start thinking about, okay, what did I do there? And because I can fall into the trap of being a know-it-all at times. And I'm better, but I know I can fall into it. That's why I asked the question the way I asked it, because I sometimes I just don't even recognize that I've fallen into it. Common what you see?
Yeah, and I think we all kind of struggle with that sometimes, you know, where you have the situation where you're pretty firm on what you think the answer is or what direction you should go. Trust me, I've been like that a lot. I've just gotten better over the years that when somebody brings an idea to me, and at first, if I might want to shut it down thinking, well, this is crazy. There's no way this is going to work. Instead of jumping in and saying that, I kind of pause, hear them out. And a lot of times I might say, they're right. That actually makes a lot of sense. So I wouldn't beat yourself up too much over it. I think it's great that at least you realize it. I think that the real problem with know-it-alls is that they just have this barrier up in front of them where they're not even open to entertaining the idea or getting feedback. And even worse, are the ones who ask for feedback or they tell you they want feedback. So you share with them a little feedback and then they just bite your head off. Well, you're wrong. And, you know, so it's like, well, why do I even waste my time having that conversation? So I think that it's great that whether it's your wife or your friends, that they feel comfortable enough with you to say, hey, Jay, come on, you're full of it right here.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have it all figured out. So I think that it's great that they're able to do that.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I'm so focused on a growth mindset. I can't have a growth mindset if I also have a closed mindset. So if I'm not open, right? If we're not have an open mindset where I say soft front, stiff back. I mean, you don't have to compromise your principles. It's not what I'm saying, but you're willing to entertain and listen carefully and clearly. But if I know it all, then I'm no longer open. I'm closed, which means how can I be in growth if I'm not open into listening to another side? That doesn't make sense to me. And to me, when I read your book, it's, you know what, this is about having a growth mindset, but it's also having an open mindset. And then I as I read further, I go, oh my gosh, he's actually got all 4 of the mindsets in here. And that's really powerful for me. Chapter 1, Damon, it's entitled Go All In. And you start off about being committed. Talk about go all in as a learn it all leader.
So, and maybe that's just the way I've always kind of been, for me, if whether it's work, whether it's playing sports, or now over the last 7-8 years being a father, when I find something I enjoy, I just kind of go all in, and I'm committed in that direction to do it. And I think that's important. If you're an entrepreneur, let's say you're somebody who's starting your own business, you might, oh, entrepreneurship's so fun. Well, it's only going to be successful if you put in the work and realize that it's not going to be linear. You're going to have a lot of struggles along the way. And so for me, it's like with podcasting. I didn't even really think about wanting to do it. Getting on, being a guest is one thing. But when I started my own show, I really enjoyed it. So I just went all in. I just started studying. I started getting mentors. I started talking to people like you who've been doing this much longer. And here I am 2 years into it, less than 2 years into it, and I'm already at close to 200 episodes. It's just because I think going all in and committing to something, you only get better by repetition and doing it over and over and learning and realizing, like, my first couple interviews were absolutely horrible, but I would never take them down because I want to see the projection of the growth. And so I just think that if you're going to commit to something and you say you want to do it, you have to go all in. Now, that doesn't mean you can't pivot if it's something that's no longer of interest or something that's not working out. Sure, it's okay to pivot. But if you really want to be great at something, you have to give it your full attention and go all in.
Yeah, and you're right. When I started this like 8 years ago, actually we're about a month away from our 8th year, and doing this, and I didn't know what I was doing on my own. I had co-hosted on somebody else's show, and that was easy. But then to do it myself was very different. So, and you're right. I went and studied Larry King. Everything that Larry King did, I studied how he asked questions. We did Johnny Carson, David Letterman. I know people go, well, that's crazy, but I'm like going, they know how to ask questions to get things out of people. And still do to this day. I still study them and other people and other hosts, because Joe Rogan now, I study him a lot because whatever you like about him or dislike about him is irrelevant to me. You know what? He's pretty darn successful at what he does. And I want to learn from those people. So, and you're right. And then it's practice and practice and practice and preparation and preparation. So you got to go all in. I totally agree. One of the things you say, though, in this chapter is you start moving into imposter syndrome. And you say something here I think is really cool. You can't substitute other people's belief in you for your belief in yourself. Only you can put the self and self-confidence. And you give us 3 keys to beating imposter syndrome: hard work, focus, and learning. Talk about that, the imposter syndrome, and how hard work, focus, and learning helps us overcome it.
Well, one thing I want to say before I move on from what you said about studying those hosts, which I think is brilliant, Jay, is whether it's Rogan or whoever, Larry King. Now, there's a great book, Steal Like an Artist, so it doesn't mean you need to start from scratch and figure everything out on your own. You could just take pieces of what other people are doing,
right.
Learn what makes them successful. Like in baseball, you could look at people's batting stances or whatever and figure out what works for you, and just go your own direction, but, could learn from everybody. So I think that's great when you do that. As far as, overcoming imposter syndrome, I've actually added a fourth step. And the first step to start off with is just labeling your fear. Like, what are you worried about? What's bothering you? So the story I talk about in my book is around struggling at Pepperdine and not having confidence in myself, and having my coach basically sit me down and have a conversation with me. But the four steps to overcoming imposter syndrome is, let's say I'm afraid I'm going to make the baseball team. Okay, so what's the worst case scenario? In 1 year from now, if I don't make the baseball team, worst thing that happens, I just go on and get my degree and move on. I could live with that. So one, you label your fear. The next step I look at is hard work. Look, there's no hacks or shortcuts to working hard. If you want to be a great keynote speaker, you got to get out and you got to do as many speeches as possible. If you want to be a great leader, you got to read books, you got to learn from other people, you got to put in the hard work. The next step after the hard work is focus, deliberate practice. In baseball, for you sports fans out there, we were joking beforehand about hitting a curveball, hitting a slider. I really struggled with that. So I deliberately asked my baseball coach to throw me 1,000 curveballs. You just keep focusing on that one area until you get better. In keynote speaking, if I had a rough intro, I would just practice that till you get better at it, and then you move on to the next step. And then the final step is, whether you're stepping on stage for a presentation or you're stepping into the batter's box for baseball, it sounds a little cheesy, it's time to learn and let go, right? You've done you put in the hard work, you could overcome if things go wrong. Just stop thinking about your technique or whatever it is, and just have fun and do your best. You might strike out, you might knock it out of the park, but whatever you do, it's a learning moment for you. It's an opportunity to learn and get better. And on top of that, Jay, I think that we give ourselves too hard of a time. Just going out and trying something, you should give yourself a pat on the back, because so many people pass up that opportunity of something they really want to do because they're afraid of failing. And if you can just get yourself a little bit more comfortable with failing and just realizing that, hey, you know what, you're going to give it your best shot. That's all you can do. And the more you work through that, I found for myself, whenever I struggle with imposter syndrome, which I think we all do, and if you say that you don't, you're either a sociopath or you're just lying to yourself. That's just the framework that I've used since my baseball days, a long time ago, to overcome imposter syndrome.
You just gave me like one of those moments where I'm like going, oh, well, there's an analogy for life. Practice hitting curveballs. How many of us in our careers or as leaders, how many of us actually practice the curveball, hitting the curveball? I think we go into leadership not thinking about curveballs, but maybe we should spend some time practice taking swings at curveballs. You know what I mean? You did it safely with your coaches, right? Throw me the curve, keep throwing me the curve, keep throwing me a curve, keep throwing me a curve until it's like developing scripts of overcoming objections. It's like thinking through, okay, this could happen. How do I handle that? How do I overcome it? I don't think we spend much time practicing. I don't want to over practice it, but I should spend enough time that I'm prepared for it. And that's really a great analogy, man.
Well, I like what you just brought up about the objections part in sales, because it's tough. It's something that's tough and it's uncomfortable. And so it's easy to want to practice something else, when it comes to sales. Maybe you want to practice your introduction of a discovery call. Well, if you don't get past the objection handling, guess what? You're not going to get to the discovery call. So why don't you hone in, figure out what the one or two most common objections you're going to get, do some role playing, and just focus on getting better at that. And then when it's live, when somebody actually picks up their phone or responds to an email, or maybe not respond to an email, but then how to battle that head on.
Yeah, love it. His name's Damon Lembi. The book, The Learn It All Leader, Mindset, Traits, and Tools, available everywhere. Pick it up. Check out your website. Is it Learn It All Leader? Is that right?
That's my personal website, but my company website's learnit.com.
LearnIt.com. Altogether, LEARNIT.com. Check him out. Check the book out. Get yourself a copy. Tell you know what? Buy one as gifts. I'm just telling you, it's awesome. You're going to enjoy it. You're listening to him here on A New Direction. Folks, Zoundy, I love it. If you're an author, if you're a publisher, and you're in the audiobook space, I'm going to tell you what makes Zoundy different than any other audiobook space that's out there, and that is this. I can go, like I'm going to be giving a talk in Utah, and I'm going to have several hundred people at this talk that I'm doing, and I can give away my book for free, audiobook for free, right? And here's the cool, everybody gets to download it, but then I get an email address where I can interact with the people who are downloaded the book. Here's what's cool about that for me, as an author, and also, and for my publisher. What's cool about that is I now can ask them questions, what they liked, what they didn't like, what they'd like to see me write next, where would they like me to go, what would they like me to see me explain, how I can help them. It's an incredible tool. It's Zoundy, Zoundy. Now listen, here's what they've done for me. They have a special discounted offer. If you go to zoundy.com/J, that's Jay, and you use my code J25, that's JAY25, and that will unlock these special savings. Zoundy.com/J, J25. Check them out. They're really, really awesome. And you're going to be so glad that you did. Also, Linda Craft Team Realtors, our very first sponsor, has been with us since the very beginning. And you know what? They are the leaders in transitioning your life. And you go, what do you mean? I'd like to do real estate. Yeah, they do. But think about it. Every place you've ever lived has been a life transition. So you know what? They know how to take the stress out of that part. So whether you're selling a home, buying a home, check them out. LindaCraft.com, LINDACRAFT.com. And we're back here on A New Direction with my friend Damon Lembi. The book, The Learn It All Leader, Mindset, Traits, and Tools, absolutely fantastic. We just got started. We're into segment 2. I do want to spend just a second on fear. You did bring it up. I do want to, because fear is very real. We don't always like admitting our fear. And there's 3 things that you say. Here's some tools when you wrestle with, like fear or self-doubt and anxiety. And the 3 things you say are perspective, purposeful awfulizing, and learn it. And I want you to do all 3, but I really want you to hit purposeful awfulizing. You mind doing that for me? So talk about that, overcoming your fear, the tools.
Yeah. So the purposeful awfulizing is kind of what I was just referring to in the imposter syndrome. And it's pushing yourself to the worst case scenario. Jay, everybody says, oh, you should always be so positive. Think about how great everything's going to turn out. Well, that's when I was talking about, trying out for a baseball team and not making it. Purposeful awfulizing, let's say in a business perspective, let's say I'm considering acquiring another business. Okay. Well, sometimes you'll think about, okay, this is going to be great. We're going to add all these new products, all these new employees. Things couldn't be better. But you should also look at the flip side. Like, what happens if this goes terribly wrong? So fast forward a year, if things go terribly wrong, is it going to put us out of business? How is it going to affect what we're doing? And that's what I mean by purposefully awfulizing. It's addressing the worst case scenario, what the fear could look like. And if it's a situation that you can't overcome, then you got to recalibrate and think about, how could I do this differently? So that's one way to address a fear, which I think is super important. And again, with the learn it part, it's just like, it's a learning opportunity for you. You got to get out of your comfort zone and face up to the fear. It's a lot of times it just comes down to, people might say no to you about something. Well, you just got to deal with it, and the more you get comfortable of facing your fear head on, like, because we all have our situation. You think about it, like, what's the worst case that's going to happen? Somebody says no to you, don't take it personally and just, keep going.
In my last book, I wrote, the first chapter is, sometimes you got to do things afraid.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a firm believer that fear, if you're waiting for fear to go away, you're going to wait forever. You have to do things afraid. You just have to. And part of that actually comes from the very first thing you said in the first chapter, which is at the beginning, is be all in. When you're committed, it's easier to do things afraid. Does that make sense?
Well, what makes sense that you're talking about is that if you're not ever fearful, especially in your professional career, then you're not growing.
Oh, yeah, good point.
Because you're not stepping out of your comfort zone. You're protecting yourself from getting out of your discomfort zone. And there's another thing that I didn't mention this in my book, but it's so true. A lot of times leaders protect their comfort zone. And when they do that, Jay, that's a detriment to everybody else on their team, in their organization. Because think about it. Let's say you have an employee and they're not doing well, and you need to have a difficult conversation with them, but you're kind of, afraid to have that conversation. Maybe they'll get upset, maybe they'll leave, or whatever it is. Well, by you protecting your comfort zone and avoiding that situation, you're hurting their opportunity for growth. So you're stunting your growth and you're hurting them as well. So I don't think that if you're never fearful of anything and you're not stepping out of your comfort zone, it's going to really stunt your opportunity for personal growth and for your team and your company.
I agree with you. I had another author a couple months ago say something I thought was incredibly profound. She says, if it doesn't scare you, it's probably not worth doing. And I thought, wow. I thought that was pretty profound.
Now, for your listeners, I would say, I think that's great, but that doesn't mean you should go do something crazy, get on a helicopter or something.
Right. No, I get it. But I like the idea of pushing the envelope to something that makes me uncomfortable. I like practicing deliberate discomfort. I think that's really, really important to do. And I think that's what she meant, but it was pretty profound when she said it. I thought it was pretty interesting. Chapter 2, Assume Nothing is the title. You really hit my wheelhouse here in this one, as you did with every chapter. Be humble. Talk to us about the importance of being humble.
I've been really fortunate over the years, both for when it comes to professional athletes and some really incredibly successful business people. And it's so surprising how many of them are just super humble, and you would never know the success that they had because they don't wear it on their sleeves. And like my dad would always say, who is my idol, I talked a lot about in my book. You see people and they talk about how much money they have. Those are typically the ones who don't have any, because why do you need to go out and boast about it? How's that going to make you better? How's that going to make anybody else better? You got to be humble and grateful for what you have. And at the same time, be okay with saying, look, I don't have all the answers. And when you do that, I think especially as a leader, you're authentic, you're genuine, and people want to work for people like that. People don't want to work for yes men, what I mean by that is that you have to say yes to everything that they say, and that they're always boasting and putting themselves out there. Like with LearnIt, I don't want all the success to be about me. I want it to be about my team, and the work they've done. And that's just what I mean about being humble. Don't make it about yourself. Great leadership shouldn't be about you. It should be about your people.
And it ties into something that you say a little bit later called the beginner's mind. And you say this, it's an interesting paradox. Humility requires confidence. Mm-hmm. And admitting that you don't immediately know the correct approach to a problem makes you vulnerable. Something people lacking in confidence are often unwilling to do. Talk about the importance of having a beginner's mindset.
No, I'm sure with you that with the customers you work with and the speeches you do, that you see that as well. That being humble, vulnerability and confidence. It's incredibly important to be vulnerable, but not the kind of vulnerable like that crying CEO guy who is just had to let go of a bunch of people and he's on YouTube crying. He got bashed because he made it all about himself. People don't care about you. They care about the 200 people you let go, whatever it is. So the right way to be vulnerable, it's a fine line. Be vulnerable, like, hey, I need some help. I got to figure this out. But also do it in a way with confidence. Like, we're going to figure this out together. One of my favorite guys of all time is Winston Churchill. And Churchill would get out during the Battle of Britain, beginning of World War II, and say, look, I don't have all the answers. I'm not exactly sure what we're going to do, but we're going to all work together and we're going to make it happen. And we're going to save the world, essentially, is what he did. So you got to be humble. It's important to be vulnerable, but do it in a way where your people have that you're showing confidence. Because, Jay, at the end of the day, if you're vulnerable and weak, people are going to want to be like, I'm putting my career in this person's hand, from an organization. I got to pay a mortgage. If this leader is weak and always saying sorry and, doesn't have any answers, then maybe I should go somewhere else. So that's why it's important to be vulnerable, but with confidence.
I'm going to jump to chapter 4 and titled Do the Right Thing. And what I really want to focus on here is something that you said, and under integrity. And I want to just read this quote, and then I just want you to expand on it and help us talk about this. You say, own your entire self, your history and your flaws, and be honest about your mistakes. If you don't, you'll be doomed to repeat them.
So to expand on that, I think a lot of times, well, first of all, when it comes to integrity, I think that's one of the key traits for being a learn-it-all leader and being a great leader. And you would think you wouldn't even have to mention it, but it's true. Do what you're going to say what you're going to do, own up to mistakes and be honest, and do what's best for your team and for your customers. If there's a better product and it's less expensive, make sure that they can see that because it'll get back to you. Now, that quote you're referring to, what I'm saying is, if you make a mistake or something goes wrong, don't pass the blame on to somebody else and have a victim mentality or whatever you're going to do. Own up to it. And think about it from this perspective. Like, a victim would say, well, this happened to me because of this, or that coach didn't like me, or this leader promoted this person for whatever reason, or we lost this deal. Somebody who takes accountability and ownership would say, what could I have done differently? What can I do differently next time in this situation? Because if you don't do that, you will be doomed to make the same mistake over and over again, because you're not learning. You're not having any self-awareness and reflection on how you contributed to things not going well. And so that's why it's important to take ownership, have integrity around it, and think about what you can do differently next time. There's nothing wrong with making mistakes. You should make mistakes. Just don't make the same mistake over and over again all the time.
Mm-hmm. I think the thing that really caught me about that quote is own your stuff. All of it. Own it. I think we can often, own our mistakes sometimes, but I think then, we'll go back, well, I am this way because my parents, or because of this situation happened and this situation happened. And so then we feel like we're off the hook for who we are. And how I interpreted that was, no, you have to own it all, right? You are who you are. Own your stuff. At least that's how I interpret it. Did I get that wrong?
No, you didn't get it wrong. But there's one thing I'll say is, when you run into somebody who says, I am this way or I am that way, that is like a sure sign of a know-it-all leader, or a know-it-all person, because that's just how I am. That's just how I am. That's a know-it-all. And so you're absolutely right. Whether it's your family, your background, whatever, you got to own up to it and be open to, if it's necessary, to shift and change.
Yeah, I agree with you. Last little piece in this chapter that I want to discuss with you is value your values. I've done a little research on my own, and I have asked people this question. Can you tell me right now what your top 3 core values are, personally? And I have yet for anyone to be able to answer that question without like going, well, I guess they would be, versus really knowing them. And I find that interesting, that oftentimes we don't know our own values. And if we don't know our own values, how is it possible, if we're in leadership in a company, to really espouse the values that we've put on the wall? And I guess that's a question I want to ask you, because it seems incongruent to me.
Well, putting the values on the wall is typically where the values stay for your organization, and your team won't even remember what those values are. And I think that the culture that you build in an organization starts at the top. It starts with the leadership, and they have to model those behaviors, so to speak, or those values, so to speak, and live them in how they go about their day to day, and then others will see it and can incorporate it into the work they do. And when you're hiring, you should look for those values as well. For me, my top values are: I want to be honest, have integrity, and take ownership. And the other one we talk about is like doing the right thing all the time. In my book, I hired two different individuals, same skill set. The second one, we could have hired for, I think, $5,000 less, but I said the right thing to do is just bump her up a little bit so they're both at the same playing field. Don't nickel and dime one, because it can come back and get you. And you just gotta have values, and I don't think you can't just adjust them when by situation. If you're going to be honest and have integrity, then you got to live by that all the time.
His name is Damon Lembi. The book is titled The Learn It All Leader: Mindset, Traits, and Tools. Available everywhere. Fantastic book, folks. I'm just telling you, I don't care where you're at whether you're aspiring leader, whether you are currently in leadership, whether you've been in leadership forever. The book is absolutely invaluable. Get yourself a copy. Get it to your leadership team. Get it to your people. Because you know what? Everybody's a leader from wherever they are. Whatever your position is in life, you're still leading. I promise you're leading somebody. And this book is going to help you. You're listening to him here on A New Direction. Hey, folks, Zoundy, I talk about them. Let me tell you a cool thing that I have. So Zoundy created for me special links, like for Facebook, LinkedIn, X, different social media platforms, that I could give my book away in different platforms. And you say, well, why would you do that? Well, because I want to be connected with my readers, or in this case, the reader listener. And so as they download the book, I get information back, and I could start reaching out to them, and I could start talking to them about different aspects of the book, maybe about some things that they would like to have more information about that I could write about. So it's a great way for me to generate new material. It also helps me generate new content on a regular basis. So I really love them. So whether you're launching your first book, or you've done several books, check out Zoundy. I can't recommend enough for authors, publishers, or professionals in the audio book space. Listen, special code that they've given me here on A New Direction. Go to Zoundy, ZOUNDY.com/J, J-A-Y. Use my code JAY25. That's J25. You'll unlock special savings. I'm telling you, it's worth it. It's a great platform. I really like it. And actually, the people who listen to the book say it's a great platform too. So check them out. Zoundy.com/J, use J25. And Linda Craft Team Realtors. Listen, I talk a lot about them, but I may be biased when I say this, and I probably am, but I believe it is the best real estate website out there, period. And yes, they have everything that you would see on any other website for sure. But then they have little things that you probably are not thinking about. Like they got a child psychologist to write how to move with children. Interesting, right? They got a veterinarian, how to move with pets. All sorts of extra add-ons. Vendors that they've used over the course of the last 40 years that they've trusted and that had continued to trust. Things about the area. I mean, it's just complete. It's just the most complete website for real estate I've ever seen. I highly recommend that you go check them out and check out the website. It's very simple. It's the same place. It's just lindacraft.com. LINDACRAFT.com. And we're back here on A New Direction with my friend Damon Lembi, the book, The Learn It All Leader: mindset, traits, and tools. Fantastic. Are you enjoying this at all?
Me?
Yeah, Damon. Yeah.
I'm loving it.
Okay.
Are,
Okay.
are you enjoying it?
Oh my gosh.
Huh?
There's nothing
I
better.
wanted to make sure. I thought maybe you
No,
forgot I
no,
was here.
no. There is just nothing better for me than to read somebody's work, right, thoroughly, and then to hear them where I can sit at their feet and I can just go, okay, feed me. Just teach me. There's nothing better for me.
I
I
know
am.
that's cool, right? On podcasting, having authors come on and just like you read their book and you're like, man, this is awesome.
It's so awesome. So, am I having a good time? Are you kidding me?
I just want to make sure.
Oh yeah, no, it's phenomenal. I want you to have a good time too, though. I mean, because
I'm having a great time.
okay, good for you. I'm going to jump into doing the part 2 doing. And by the way, I just want to thank everybody who's tuning in, watching us live. Thank you for doing that. Appreciate you. People who are going to listen to this on podcasts later, listen. Thanks for listening. Please tell your friends. Tell your enemies too, because they probably need it. Chapter 6: build great teams. People always are looking to build a great team. You talk about hire for diversity of opinion and commonality of principles. Explain that.
So principles similar to values. So it's like these are the same kind of things we believe in, but you have to hire, I truly believe, people with diverse opinions. You don't want to get the same age bracket, race, whatever, everybody thinking the same way. Because if you do that, you're not going to have what I call intellectual friction. Intellectual friction is healthy conflict, where people come and they look at opportunities and ideas in different ways and give pushback on things. If everybody comes from the same place, same background, a lot of the ideas are going to be the same. And that's why I think it's so great to have a diverse team and give them the space to share their ideas and how they view things. So that to me is really important. The other thing I think is really important when it comes to building a great team, you're probably going to ask me this anyways, is hiring for aptitude and attitude a lot of times over experience. I don't know. I mean, I tell a story in there about Southwest Airlines and the turnaround time. People saying, well, you can't do it because this is how we've always done it when it comes to maintenance on planes. And then they brought in people who were sharp and eager to learn, and they beat the record by a significant amount, because they didn't know any better. So they just went in there with a beginner's mind and they gave it their best shot, and they were able to accomplish things that sometimes people who are stuck in the way things have always been aren't open to.
Yeah, by the way, great story. I'm going to dive into something, though, that's near and dear to your heart, and that's the core values of LearnIt. And it's the acronym LEARN. And I found this to be absolutely awesome because I know it's who you are. And talk about those core values: lifelong learning, embracing change, act like owners, rally around the customers, and nurture a growth mindset.
So one, I wanted to tie it into learn, which is what we're all about. And when it comes to being a learning organization, you can't just get passionate about learning for your customers if you don't do it yourself. So that starts with lifelong learning. I'm all about learning, reading, evolving, growing, and I want to do the same thing with our team. Give them learning opportunities outside of LearnIt. So lifelong learning, I think, is that continuous journey is just so important. Embracing change, you have to embrace change. I mean, if especially these days, Jay, with what's going on in the world with AI and all the uncertainty out there, you have to be a lifelong learner. You got to be open to change. You got to be accountable. It's so important to be accountable of what's going on out there, and take ownership. Don't pass the buck. I mean, all of those things are just so important, and these are all the things that we live by at LearnIt. And rallying around the customer. I'm not saying your customer is always right, but you want to do what's best for your customer. And a lot of times that just starts with you take care of your employees, then your employees will take care of your customer. So you invest in your team, then they'll invest in your customer. Do what's right with your customer. If they come to us with a challenge or a need, and it's not a right fit for us, we got to be a trusted advisor. Send them somewhere else. Give them an introduction somewhere else, and when the time comes, they'll come back to you. So your solution doesn't always, may not always be the best thing, but have enough integrity to put them in a direction of where they need to go. And yeah, so that's basically it. I mean, that's what we live with at LearnIt.
I think it's interesting that you just pointed out, put your customers sometimes in a different place. I have a really close friend who works for a global company, works with Fortune 500 companies. And he was telling me that his technique is, first of all, I'm just here to help, right? When he's dealing with these companies, I'm just here to help. And if he feels like they're not right fit, he recommends another company or two that he thinks might be a better fit. And then inevitably, he said, they come back. They just come back to me. And
totally.
They always do. And he said, they're so grateful that I recommended our competitor. And like when people hear that, they shudder. But he really does want to help. And if he feels like we're not the right fit for where he works, he recommends a competitor and says, here's the person you need to talk to. I think they may be a better fit for you. But he said, every time, Jay, he said, it may be 9 months, it may be a year, it may be 2 years, maybe 3 years, but they come back. And
yeah, and that's 100%. You're right. And that's just coming into it, the mindset of wanting to help, right? So wanting to help. Another great time to recommend your competitors is when you have an awful client that you don't want to work with anymore. Send them your competitors' way too.
I'm sorry, but that is funny. You got to admit that is a little funny, right?
Yeah, totally.
Send your worst customers to your competitors. Okay, good. Okay, I like that. That's good. Good for you. One of the things of building a team that you say is you hire top talent, and you have this thing called the 3F formula. Mm-hmm. Find great people, figure out their strengths, focus on their strengths. Let's talk through that just a little bit.
I believe you can teach skills. You could definitely teach skills. What you can't teach is, I think, drive. A lot of times people either have drive or they don't. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I talk about Carly Lutz in my book, and Carly came to LearnIt, and sharp, eager. You could just tell from a value perspective, she was the right person. She's a great person to have on your team. We put her in. Put her in sales. It turned out it wasn't something she didn't enjoy coming to work. She didn't enjoy coming to work, and she actually had a conversation with me and said that she was going to leave and she's going to go somewhere else. But we talked a little bit more, and again, I got curious, right, and said, well, what would success look like for here? What are you passionate about? And she talked about building an online community, and that was something I always wanted to do. So I told her to come back with the business plan, what that would look like. And she did. And she built this online community that really thrived over COVID, and that we still use at LearnIt. So, we found Carly. Actually, she came as a referral from a alumni, which is great. If you part ways with somebody professionally, then they're always going to refer people to you. So that's how we found Carly. You figure out their strengths, their strengths and their passion, and then you focus in on putting them in a position that makes them successful. And that's and Carly, it's funny talking about Carly. She stayed at LearnIt for quite a while. Then she moved on to become a project manager someplace on the East Coast. Got a call from her the other day, and now Carly is going to be doing partner work with LearnIt again. That may lead back into a full-time position. You never know, right? But I'm just a big believer, especially as a smaller business, is you find these great people with the right attitude and aptitude, like I mentioned. You figure out where they would be best. Like in baseball, if you're a baseball fan, some guys can play catcher, but they're much better right fielders, right? So put them on the field where they belong. And then you focus on the strengths and you go from there. You and I talked about it. It's very difficult when it comes to focusing on weaknesses over strengths. Sure, you could take somebody from a 5.5 to a 6, but why not figure out what they're doing really well and get them from a 9 to a 10? I think that it's low hanging fruit, and you're gonna get much better bang for your buck focusing on people's strengths than you are, always try to make your weaknesses a little better. And
Right.
they're probably weaknesses because they don't enjoy it anyways.
Right.
So you keep pushing that up the hill, they're probably just going to leave.
Right. Right. Yeah. You and I are in such agreement on this, is that I was saying to you that maybe we can get our weaknesses to a D plus,
Mhm.
but man, if we lean into our strengths, everything is possible when we do our strengths. Here's another one that you talk about: building a team, hire coachable players. Talk about that.
I mean, that's a non-negotiable, if you want my opinion. You do your best in the interview process, and I got a couple questions that we use, like give me an example of the last book you've read, or share a time where you made a mistake and what were you able to learn from it. At the end of the day, you really need to bring on team members who are coachable, who are moldable, who are open to learning and growing, um, instead of the know-it-all mentality. So the thing I'm most proud of learning over the years, it's not that we've trained about 2 million people. It's the people who have come through the doors here and who've worked here. And the vast majority, 90% plus, have been extremely coachable and open to learning and growing. And that's what's been so great. And I've learned so much from them in return.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't it interesting that coachable people turn into coaches for you, right? As a leader, because you learn so much from the process in itself. I know I do. I know for me as a business coach and a life coach, I know that for me, I feel like it's almost unfair because I actually learn so much from my clients. And there's just this reciprocal relationship that happens when you have people who are coachable. I'm going to jump to chapter 7 here with, we got a few minutes, and it's called Play to Win. And I want you to talk about playing to win. And I want you to add in this concept of zero-sum thinking when it comes to playing to win, because I feel like that's an issue for a lot of people.
Well, zero sum thinking is like, it's always got to be somebody wins and somebody loses. I mean, that's really what that is. And I'm a very competitive person. I played college baseball, everything. I've always been very competitive. I don't like to lose, but I also want to win with integrity, the right way, and not make it so that the I don't know, do something either illegal or wrong to the other guy too. And I think there's always space, and it goes back to, like we talked about, we might go to win an opportunity with a customer, but maybe there's several parts of the program they're doing, and one of them isn't a good fit for us. So we'll take the majority of it, and we'll have to bring in somebody from the outside to do the rest. So I don't think playing to win means, a zero-sum game where there's always a loser all the time, especially when it comes to doing things the right way. But I don't like losing. I just want to make sure that's clear too.
I agree with you. I'm not a very good loser. I'm going to be really honest with you. I played competitive sports my whole life, some baseball, college football, and other sports. And I got to tell you, I'm not a very good loser. Just not. I'm a horrible loser. And I just know I am. I try to work on it, but got to tell you, I will say the right things, but I go home and it's just not good. Be honest with you, Damon. It's just not good. But I think, but I know that that's what drives me, because I want to be the best. I want to improve. I want to be better. And as great as winning is, losing is far more intense.
Yeah. But the challenge is, I used to beat myself up over losing all the time.
Right.
And I would get pissed, and I'd put all this negative energy in it. And again, this is zero sum. Like, okay, I could learn from this situation. Like,
Right.
I've gotten much better, Jay. Like we'll lose a deal that I thought we'd win, and instead of getting upset or whatever, I might reach out to the client, to the prospect, and say, "Hey, I'm not trying to get you to change your mind. I would just love to have a 15-minute conversation to see what can we do better next time. And so rechanneling that energy from completely negative to how do I make this a learning opportunity for me so I could go and win next time, I think is very important. But as a father of 2 young kids, I'm not a fan of the participation trophy either.
Right.
I do believe in it's the process of doing things, are almost as important as the results. But I don't think every kid should be just given a trophy just because they participated.
Right. Well, I'm right with you because I don't know what we learned from that. I think
Yeah,
it's important.
exactly. What do we learn from that?
I'm not sure what we learned from that at all. We've done our hour, brother. This
Can we do another hour? Can we just keep going?
Yeah, we could do another hour because this has been fun for me, man. I've enjoyed it, and we really just glazed over the book because there's so much more that we could have talked about, for sure. So tell people how they can get a hold of you. Tell them you and LearnIt. Do that for you. Tell the audience.
Sure. So connect with me on LinkedIn, Damon Lembi on LinkedIn. Check out my podcast, the Learn It All podcast. My website is learnit.com. And if you reach out to me on LinkedIn and say you found me through the New Direction Show, I'll send you a code to a free class. So the classes are like $250. And whether you want to learn, I don't know, emotional intelligence, how to become a better leader, whatever it is, just mention that you heard this show. I'll send you a free code. And all I ask for in return is just to get feedback on your experience, what you thought of the class. So I hope your listeners take me up on that.
I hope you do too. As a matter of fact, are you okay if I put it in the write-up?
100%. I want you to. Okay.
Yeah. If you're okay with that, I'll do that. And so if they heard it, they go to learnit.com. And if they heard it on a New Direction, they put it in an email? Is there a special place they need to go?
Yeah, I'd say that the best way to do it is either send me a message on LinkedIn or shoot me an email. I'm sure my email will be on that too, but just put it in the subject line.
Yeah. I'll put your LinkedIn profile too as well. On
100%. It happens. I love to give people an opportunity who want to grow and get better. And I'm proud of the classes and the services we have. So I'd love to share it with your audience.
Awesome. Stay with me, will you please, Damon? Folks, this is the show. You know what I say? You know what? You're in control of 3 things in your life: your attitude, your effort, and your resiliency. Life doesn't always give us what we want. In fact, sometimes life seems to turn a corner that we don't expect and can deliver some things. But what you are in control of is your attitude. It's not easy all the time, but you know what? You can choose to be positive in the midst of bad circumstances. The second thing is your effort that you're in control of. And effort is tied to your excellence. You choose how excellent you want to be today, right? We all have different levels what's in our tank, but whatever you got, give it your best. That's up to you. And then finally, resilience. We all get punched in the gut or knocked in the teeth, but it's up to you to get back up. And there's a reason why, because we need you and we want you on the team and you're worth it. I'll be back next week with another great guest. It's going to be another great show. It's going to be another great book. It has to be. As I say to you all over the world, you have a lot of choices. You chose us. Thank you for doing that. Give us a thumbs up on YouTube. Wherever you may be listening to the show, give us a 5-star review and write us a little something, really, to encourage people to listen to the show. And as I say to you all over the world, you know what that is? Ciao, everybody.